This is a Rogue Media Network podcast. This is Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Central Texas Life. Ann Harder with you. And it is a joy for me to introduce you to our fourth and final candidate for the Waco Symphony Orchestra music director conductor position. And he is Maestro David Itkin, who comes to us. You're from Texas.
No, I'm from Oregon, but I live in
but
Texas.
you live in,
I live
meaning,
in Texas.
meaning you're
Right.
you're from now.
I am from now. That's true.
Texas, because I mean you've been at the University of North Texas now for
15 years.
15 years,
Right.
and conductor of the Abilene Philharmonic for almost 20. I mean,
Almost
19,
20. That's
19
right.
years. But prior to that, you've just gone everywhere and done everything. More than 1,000 performances and all over the world and the United States. So you've been in Waco, and it's been a whirlwind, I know, because we keep
Yes.
you very busy.
Yes, very busy last few days.
Meeting a lot of people, and oh, by the way, some rehearsals with
Also.
the orchestra. So it's what's your take on Waco then?
Well, you know, I've been in Waco before, but only a few times because actually my stepson went to Baylor.
Oh, that's great.
It was
I
a
did not know that.
A little bit ago. He got his bachelor's and his MBA here. So I have been in and out of Baylor a number of times for that reason, and I've been here also to be on the campus and interface with the music faculty.
Yes.
Before I came here, judged the Baylor concerto competition. I was asked to judge, and that was a privilege and great fun to hear those students play just a year ago. And I was here once to hear Waco Symphony play.
Oh, very good.
Also, so I've been here a few times before this, but I've never been spent anywhere near this much time here. and my colleagues who live in Waco have told me many times they love living here, and that the town is much bigger and much more vibrant than one maybe might guess. You know, it's
if you're just driving through, like
you're-
most people
exactly.
do on
you see
Interstate
that beautiful
35.
you see that beautiful big stadium.
Yeah.
And then you see a freeway, and then you're done, and you
Yeah.
don't really experience Waco at all. And but now I have, and they were right. It's a much larger and much more interesting and vibrant place than you would know if you just cruise through on the freeway.
Oh, well, we are glad. We're so happy to welcome you here. And it's just been a joy for me as a member of the selection committee to go through this process and get to visit with musicians of such stellar caliber and yet with such different journeys, I guess, in a way. And so we'll be talking about the music that will be happening in the concert. And part of the process is the selection of those pieces, and we'll be talking about that. But first, I do want to know a little bit more about you. You are from Oregon, but
Right.
So what kind of led you into the world of music? Did you always know you wanted to do this kind of work, or?
I've thought about that a lot of times in my life. I thought about, did I always know I was going to do this? But I have a funny memory, actually. And I was in music, as many people are, early in life.
Yeah.
In fact, I was doing professional work at 15. And
Were you really?
I was being paid to conduct when I was 16.
Really?
And so that's an odd
Kind
part.
of a prodigy.
It's already an odd part of the journey.
I guess it
and,
would be.
And my journey's been different than many kind of more traditional path of many conductors. But I still remember that even while I was involved in music at nighttime, in high school, but it was, of course, nighttime where the professional work happened. I remember my counselor in high school. I was a junior, and or maybe a senior, and she said, "So, what are you thinking of doing next?" And I remember so clearly saying, "I'm thinking about law school."
Okay.
But why?
But-
why would I have said that?
So, but you hadn't. It just sort of came out.
It sort of came out of my mouth, right? And I think it was because I think that if I said, well, you know what I already do, I'm kind of in this world.
Right.
I'm sort of
You
have
already were,
have my
yeah.
toes in the professional
For
music making
sure,
world.
yeah.
And I think that's what I'm going to do. I think that I thought, isn't this it's funny how we are when we're kids?
Yeah.
I think I thought I'd be laughed at.
Oh.
I think I thought I wouldn't
It would
be taken
be odd.
That it would be, well, that's for real stars. That's not for you.
Right.
Um,
Right.
You're doing good, David, but come on, get serious. And I think that's why I said it in hindsight. But and weirdly enough, I actually did go to law school, but when I was 40.
Did you really?
I went to law school, but that's a whole. We don't need to talk about that. I actually went to law school for fun, not to be a lawyer, and I had a blast. But that was not. That's a whole different
Well,
thing.
that's what my middle son has started law school at age 40 because he always wanted to do it.
Well,
So
that's amazing.
so funny.
Well, I hope he enjoys it as much as I did.
I think he thrilled. Really,
and I learned
is.
a ton that actually served me in
Yeah.
my musical career in certain ways.
I'll bet.
So that's actually been helpful, and I
Yeah.
loved learning about the law. It was just, and I got to enjoy it because my colleagues, who were all 15 years younger than me, couldn't really enjoy it because they were so stressed out.
And that's exactly what Joel is finding.
Right. So anyway, but
no, that's
yes.
true.
So back in high school, I did have my toes dipped in that world, and got my first opportunities to conduct sort of semi-professionally. It was in Broadway musicals,
Right.
on the West Coast, not on Broadway. But I was conducting for Broadway shows when I was 16.
Oh, they travel all over the country,
Right,
so
16,
of course,
so
yeah.
16 and 17 years old.
Did you have a favorite show?
Oh, I have so many favorite shows. I love Broadway shows, and it's one of the reasons I love doing Pops concerts
Yeah.
with orchestra, because a lot of that repertoire is from Broadway.
Sure.
And because it's kind of the music where I grew up, I came to serious music a little bit later.
Oh.
And so because that's the music I grew up with as a pit musician and as a conductor, it's near and dear to my heart, and that's one of the reasons I love doing symphonic Pops concerts.
Well, I got to see you at the Symphony Council brunch that we always have, visit with the conductor, and then you tell us about the selections we'll be hearing at the concert. And there was a keyboard set up for you, and you were using that. So, did you start out with piano? What other instruments do you do? Is that
I started out with piano and percussion at roughly the same time. I was about 7, probably kind of a normal age.
a 7-year-old practicing drums? That had to
Right,
be
yeah, my parents loved that,
lot
as you
of
can imagine. And then I actually was in some rock bands as a drummer.
Or are you really?
Not too long after that, junior high and high school.
Sure.
And then in high school,
They always need a drummer.
well, thank goodness. I picked up the trumpet also in high school. After that, I played the violin for a while, though I really only played the violin just as function to help my conducting career.
Exactly,
to
and
understand,
I have
how
learned,
things worked.
they have there are marks that have to be
Right.
put on the music
Right.
for the bow. Most people don't think about,
Right.
but yeah, the strings are pretty crucial.
Pretty crucial, and it's
Yeah.
important that conductors have a good functional
Right.
understanding of how everything works, even if we're not players at the level of the people in the orchestra. We need to understand all these different things. So it's important that we play something in all these different areas at some point in our lives. So, and also I was a singer for quite some time.
Really,
I
okay.
was actually made my living as a singer and as a singing teacher at one point. This is a bit ago.
Oh my goodness.
So there was all of that at
Yeah.
some point or other.
That is just fascinating. I mean, so well rounded in your musical experiences. I mean, but again, it's the conductor that kind of pulls it all together.
Yes.
When you're, I know you've conducted operas and choral things and all that sort of thing, and so it's important that you understand the process
Right.
of your performers and
Right.
everything.
And having been a singer for some years is really, really fantastically helpful when I work with singers, because
Yeah.
they know that I understand them and I understand their problems.
Yeah.
And a lot of conductors who have never sung or who haven't spent enough time with singers think they're just human instruments. They're just, it's like a clarinet, but there's a human being attached to it.
Yeah.
And it's not like that at all.
No.
Because what they do is incredibly difficult and very different from what instrumentalists do. And they do it in a different way, and they think differently about it.
Yeah, and it can catch a cold.
And and that's
There's
boy,
that.
did you ever hit it on the head? Is the clarinetist can catch a cold, but the clarinet can't catch a cold.
Exactly.
And the clarinet doesn't get the adrenaline or the emotions of the person who's had a bad day.
Yeah.
The player may have had a bad day, but the clarinet didn't have a bad day.
Yeah.
So the clarinetist, if they can tune it out, the instrument still functions. When a singer has had a bad day, for whatever reason, all those emotions are right up there.
Oh, yeah.
And flooding that instrument, and it's very, very difficult for them. And
Yeah.
it's a tough life. Singers have a tough life because of this emotional and physical connection to the instrument that they carry around with them 24/7.
Yeah, I've never heard it stated quite as beautifully, but yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's neat. It's neat to hear that aspect of your background. But so let's go ahead and start talking about the actual concert. I know part of the process in our candidate search has been for you to conduct a selected piece that's already been pre-programmed. All four of you have had that part of the component, and then you program around that to give a sense of what you think a Waco audience is going to love. And so let's talk about the concert that you've been preparing for this week. It's going to start off with
Bonecos de Olinda.
with a new modern
Right.
modern piece. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, it's I mean, we're going to be careful about the word modern because that turns some people off. But yes, it is a new piece for sure.
Yeah.
Clarissa Assad is a living an African American, a Brazilian American composer, and she wrote this piece, Bonecos de Olinda, about Carnival in northeastern Brazil.
In Brazil, yeah.
And her impressions, because from her childhood, of this event where they carry these gigantic puppets, the bonecos, and they carry them in the streets in a kind of a parade.
Yeah, we've seen pictures. Of that.
And she writes this music that also she takes the musical ideas in the piece from the street music that is heard called maracatu, and it's played along with this festival, and there would be roving bands of players and street drummers and all of this lively rhythmic sense of the Brazilian music comes into the orchestra for this fairly short piece called Bonecos de Olinda.
Yeah. I'll bet the musicians are having fun.
Yes,
with
it's,
that.
it's actually actually quite tricky, but I think they are having fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, good. And I was fascinated to hear you're going to do a Strauss work, and it's centered around Don Juan, but a totally different take on Don Juan,
Yes.
and you have invited a narrator.
Right.
For this. So, yeah, tell us about that.
This is a unique element that, of course, Richard Strauss's Don Juan, his tone poem, often played, fantastic, extremely difficult piece. It's actually on all string auditions.
Why is it so difficult?
Because the way Strauss writes for orchestra is hard. It's extremely notey, it's extremely technical. It starts with one of the most famous, most feared audition excerpts in our repertoire. Every string player in virtually every professional orchestra, the beginning of Don Juan is on their audition.
Really?
All the time. And when you hear the beginning of Don Juan, you will know why.
I'll know why.
Because it's extremely difficult. And they always say, what's on the audition? Well, first page of Don Juan, of course. It's on every string audition. Violins, violas, cellos, always. Because it is so technical and so difficult. And the whole piece is like that. And he writes this exuberant music to reflect the character we all know, the young, dashing ladies' man.
Yeah, womanizer, yeah.
Don Juan.
Yeah, of course.
But this, as you said, this music tells the story differently because the poem by Nicholas Lenau, from which Strauss took his direct inspiration to write the piece, tells the story slightly differently. We always think of Don Juan because of the way it's usually told. Mozart's opera Don Giovanni comes to mind, and others, that Don Juan dies as a young man. He dies by violence, usually at the hands of somebody to whom he's done wrong, or the father, or boyfriend or husband of someone he's done wrong.
Right.
And he always dies young, and that's a central point of central element of the story in its many, many retellings. But in Nicholas Lenau's poem, he doesn't die young, and the poem is Don Juan speaking from the perspective of an old man, looking back on his what shall we say adventures, and reminiscing with a certain level of joy, but also with a great deal of regret, and mostly with remorse with sadness about the fact that the worst possible thing has happened to him, which is not to die, but to not die. To be old, to be a famous, handsome, dashing ladies' man who is now none of those things.
Not anymore.
Who is now old and kind of tired and useless. And that's worse than death. And the piece ends with those words. And I've incorporated a narrator who will read little bits of the Lenau poem at selected points during the orchestra's playing
it's
to
gonna be
help
so
us
great.
along with how the thinking of Don Juan relates to the music.
And tell us about it's a friend of yours that you
It
know.
is colleague from North Texas, bass baritone Stephen Morschek. He's actually a singer, a very fine singer, but he has this being bass baritone. He has this magnificent speaking voice, and also is a fine actor. So Stephen agreed to come here with me
that's
and
great.
act as our narrator.
All right, and the big work is the Brahms.
Brahms' Fourth Symphony, his last symphony.
Yeah.
One of my truly, truly very favorite pieces on the planet.
Really.
Always has been.
I always ask that because, it's kind of like pick your favorite child, but,
Well,
picking your favorite work. So
out of-
you're
out
telling
of-
me this is pretty much
Out
it?
of Brahms' four symphonies, I'm willing to pick my favorite
This,
child.
this is okay. Okay,
This-
yeah, this is it.
and they are all. It is difficult because he only wrote four symphonies. They are all truly unique and very special in their own very unique ways. But the fourth has always been my favorite. And
He kind of finds himself.
well, he's
the work.
he's done finding. It's true. He's
Yeah.
been finding himself during the process of writing four symphonies. He starts very much a kind of a child of Beethoven and a sycophant of Beethoven in his first symphony, and then as he progresses, he's finding his own voice in the symphonic form. And by the time he gets to this, he has so many brand new things to say, and really is looking. And I'm going to speak to the audience for a moment from the stage before we play the Brahms. But he is looking forward instead of looking backward. In his early symphonies, he's looking backward, sort of hoping Beethoven likes him. And Beethoven's dead, of course, by this point. But
I get it, though. I
hoping he
understand.
can somehow please the spirit of Beethoven and not be ashamed of himself.
Oh.
But as he gets to the last symphony, he's looking forward, and sort of daring the people who come after him to be as good as him, rather than the other way around.
Yeah. Oh well, it's going to be great, and you've had the opportunity to work with our orchestra. Your take on the
Right.
without specifics.
Well,
on the. I just feel our Waco Symphony is just stellar. And we have so many Baylor professors
Yes.
who play in it, and of course, folks who come in from out of town to play in it as well. But a goodly number of students, we call them our interns,
Right.
Baylor musicians, and who are top flight. I mean, the Baylor Symphony is top flight. So just, your thoughts.
Well, it isn't. You're bringing up an interesting subject. It is unique among professional orchestras.
Right.
Maybe not the only one, but there aren't many who have this unique combination of, you use the word interns, of perhaps 2/3 to 3/4 professional players, and then this intern component of 15 to 20 of the more skilled Baylor students. And that is a very interesting mix to have worked with them and help them amalgamate into one whole rather than feeling like
Yeah.
two different camps. And we've been working at that all week long.
Good. But I know you have a lot of experience. Obviously, that's what you do. Your day job is working with students,
my day job
student
is,
musicians, but also a lot of high school. I mean, I think you did the Texas All Region Honors Orchestra, and
sometimes.
so even younger
Right.
younger musicians. So it's not new to work with young
Oh,
musicians.
no, not at all. Not at
So-
all. As you say, that's my day job. My orchestra at UNT is mostly juniors and seniors and graduate students.
Yeah.
And so that's a slightly different mix because the top orchestra at UNT, there are two symphony orchestras at UNT because of the size of the
Sure.
school. So the undergrads are mostly in the orchestra I don't conduct. So it's a little bit different mix, but in many ways very similar.
Well, that's great. I mean, that kind of gives you a different perspective, with working with a Baylor orchestra. Also, you're an author. I mean, it's a textbook, I guess, in a way, but conducting concerti in
Right.
2014. It's a lot of praise for that work.
you.
In fact, it said Leonard Slatkin called your book a valuable textbook for the aspiring maestro, highly recommended.
He was very kind. Leonard
Yeah.
was very kind. Yes, that book was published in 2014, and then 2 years ago, GIA Press in Chicago published what is really a textbook for an advanced university level, rather like my program, and I use it in my program. It's kind of the materials I've cobbled together over the first decade or so that I worked at UNT, and they were, in terrible shape. They were things I cut and pasted and handed out to my students and said, we're going to work on this.
Yeah.
And one of my students finally said, well, why don't you put this in some
Write
form
a
that is
book.
not such a mess? and
That's a good idea.
And he was right. And so that, together with other materials that needed to go with it if it was going to be out in the public, became this thing called the Conductor's Craft.
Yeah, awesome. That is so neat that you have done all that. Well, it's been a delight to get to hear, what you think about the music, and is there like a dream concert program? Well, if you were just going to say this would be my favorite program to do, what
Oh my
would be
gosh.
on it?
That now
Oh, you say you love pops, and of course,
Oh, but-
that's
But now you really are on to pick your favorite child. You really are.
Yeah.
I've been asked many times, what's your favorite piece of music? And I someday I'm going to come up with a good answer to that question.
Yeah.
I don't have one because honestly, and this sounds so incredibly false what I'm about to say, but it actually is true. And not only is it true, but it has to be true, which is that the most important pieces of music in the universe are the ones in front of me.
yeah.
And that's really true. This
That's
week
true.
this week
That's
it's the Assad and Strauss and Brahms.
And Brahms, yeah.
And I can't imagine what another program even looks like. But by
Yeah.
next week I will,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
yeah.
I'll be off to different repertoire, and that really is how it is, because
Yeah.
we have to attack every piece of music and every rehearsal and every program with that same level of commitment. And the orchestra knows when we're not. The orchestra knows when we're not really committed to the music that's in front of us.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you've had the opportunity to work with several of our musicians in the
Right.
past, because, you're sort of based in North Texas, and I'm sure many of them travel over, and you do so much conducting, in other areas.
Yes, well, there are maybe a half a dozen musicians in common
Yeah.
between the Waco Symphony and the Abilene
And Abilene, I
Philharmonic.
figured, I bet a lot
And
of
so
them travel
that,
Abilene.
and that was lovely for my first day here to
You
have
see
some
familiar faces.
Some familiar faces was really
Yeah.
nice.
I'm sure that has been true. Well, I mean, it's. I'm trying to think of what other area we need to touch on, and so what I like to do is ask my guests to answer a little questionnaire.
Okay, I'll try.
All right, it's similar to the one that the late great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actors Studio. So this is my take
and I
on
love
it.
that show.
Okay, I know, I missed that.
And I
I
love
just
him.
thought it was so.
Oh shoot, I should have been paying more attention now because I could guess what they are. If I
Okay,
would.
yeah. I'd be thinking.
right,
Okay,
here we go.
what? All right. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Wow. What is my favorite word? Us.
That's great. I have all my guests in the last 3 years. I've never heard that. I love that though, and especially as a conductor, it is. I mean, you're the guy we're seeing, the back of, but
Back up.
but it is an us that is bringing the
But
final
what we
product.
do is an us thing. It's not
yeah,
a me thing.
it's definitely all right. Thank you. What is your least favorite word?
Oh, that one's easy because I just answered the question. It's I.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's absolutely my least favorite word. In spite of the fact that what we do tends to focus attention on us, I'm actually very private, and this part's fun for me. I don't. Lots of people who are very private hate this or being on
Right.
TV or giving a speech. I
Right.
don't hate those things at all. I love them.
Oh, that's good.
Partly because I grew up in the theater and my dad was an actor, and so that
Singer,
that all-
performer.
that all
I mean,
feels-
you've done it all.
that all feels very natural to me. But the idea that the music is about me is
Yeah.
fantastically false, and it's what our conducting culture has become. And I try to do my little bit, not much, but I do my bit every day to fight that.
Oh,
That's what music has become.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh, in spite of the fact that I'm a very private person and I don't really consider myself a people person, I don't know why that is, but I don't. I like quiet and I like private time.
Right.
It is, in fact, doing this with people. And I think one of the many reasons that I ended up a conductor and not a pianist and not a singer, I was not a singer because I wasn't as good as my colleagues, but is because it is something done with people.
Yeah.
So what turns me on is the doing with people. I love study, and a lot of our job as conductors is done in a closed room with nobody else there and no other stimulus because we have to study. A lot of our life is not in the room with musicians. It's study.
Correct. Oh, yes, right.
But what really turns me on about the thing is the people, is projects, and especially unique projects with people and with new colleagues.
Yeah. Again, a reference to the us.
Yes.
Well, then what turns you off creatively, emotionally, or spiritually?
I don't like the end of things. I get very stressed about the ends of things.
Oh.
And that's all things, whether that's family, it's music, it's this or that.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. What sound do you love the most? I love asking that of a conductor.
Wow, what sound do I love the most? Wow, our whole universe is sound. That's wow. Is that now? You're back to my favorite child. What sound do I love the most? What sound do I love the most? No sound. Silence is my favorite sound, actually, because it's funny because I'm working on a third book right now. It's headed to the publisher.
Oh, good.
Next week for first tearing apart and reviewing by them, and it begins with the words "silence is everything," and it's about music and how we make music. It's also to a certain degree a memoir, but it's also a book about how we make music, and it starts with the word "silence is everything" because that is our blank canvas. Just like a painter or a writer's blank page. When there's sound all the time, and it's very difficult in this world to get away from sound.
Correct.
When there's sound all the time, we never have a blank page. And we need to find silence, whether that's in our heads or in our hearts. We got to find silence because we can't start drawing until the page is empty.
Yeah, right. Then what sound do you hate?
Oh.
Really bad French horn. I don't know.
Oh, no. The problem is the list is too long. I hate loud cars, and I hate I hate machinery.
Yeah. Cacophonous kind of
Yeah,
sounds.
it's incredibly, and I sound like I'm a little snowflake, and I'm really not, but because I spend a lot of time walking my dog, and that's where I get quiet time.
Yeah.
And the more I walk my dog, the more sensitive I become to how noisy the universe is, even in a quiet neighborhood. And we live in a normal we live in Plano. It's a normal suburban area. It's not like I live next door on top of the freeway or something, but it's amazing how much noise there is. And I walk my dog early in the morning, about 6 o'clock, 6:30. You would think it would be quiet, wouldn't you? And it's the school bus that needs repair, by the way.
Oh, I know.
And
squeaky
it's the guys doing with the leaf blowers in somebody's lawn, and it's the guy who got his car supercharged, so it goes vroom vroom when it goes by me. That makes me a little nutty.
Yeah.
All that noise.
Okay, got it. What other profession would you like to have tried? Well, you talked about law school.
Oh, well, that would have been it.
Yeah, lawyer.
I would have been a lawyer and a judge.
I could see you doing that. I can see you doing that for sure.
Or
job?
or president, but it's just too complicated now.
That's
so
very
we're going to stick with
complicated.
lawyer and judge.
Then what job do you know you do not want?
Oh, it's funny you should say that because I know exactly what it is. Because I had a lovely tour of the Baylor Music School the other day with the dean, Gary Mortensen.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to him, I wouldn't do your job for all, because the people who are great administrators,
Yes.
he here at Baylor, my dean at UNT, many others that I have met, I have so much respect for people who are really, really great administrators because I would be terrible at it. I would be terrible at it and I would hate it. And so the people who do it well I really admire. I mean, early in my career, I taught junior high and high school for 1 year.
Stars in your crown, my
Oh
friend.
man, no, because I was really bad at it, and I am utterly unfit.
You were all learning.
Some of my professional colleagues who at some point in a conversation find out that I taught junior high and high school for 1 year, just kind of their eyes go
Yeah, I
buggy.
know.
And they go, wow, that had to be bad. And it was. But you
And
you take the job early on that you can get, of
Yeah,
course.
but you know,
And-
you can make a big impact on a budding
well,
musician.
but similarly, it has given me a lifelong appreciation for the people who do that and do it well
know.
and do it with a great heart and want to go to school every day.
Yeah,
They are amazing, and I could never do what they do.
yeah, because those kids grow up to come to your program at the University of North Texas.
Or come to sit in the audience
Or-
for the Waco Symphony.
Oh, yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly. Well, one last question. What do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
It was better than you thought. You did better than you think.
That's great. Well, it has been a joy and a delight to visit with you, David Itkin. I'm so glad you've been in Waco, and I know the concert or the whole week has just been glorious and will be for our audience.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you again on Central Texas Life. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder. This has been a Rogue Media Network production.